of creating, I'm going to do that on the cloud. The purpose of us putting in a purchase order is so that it registers in our inventory. When you do a purchase order, it's basically saying I bought this and it's going into my company's inventory. Bills don't do that. Bills are just like a way to process an invoice and and allocate costs and analytic accounts. But a purchase order is able to actually register into our inventory.
So you really have two things. You have finances, which is a cost, expenses, and then you have the tracking of what you bought, the inventory. So we have a water monitoring unit, or we have a pump, and where that is, where that's located, whether it's located in the office, whether it's located in one of the projects. And as Tara's saying, in order to track that inventory, the units and where it is, you have to put it into the purchase app. And once you put it into the purchase app, the finances will be captured with that inventory.
I'm just going to use an example of one of.
So inventory does two things. It's submitting it on Odoo for processing of payment, and it's also creating an inventory list of it.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It'll now. So you put the purchase order in, and then you create a bill, and then that's the part that you're currently doing. So it's maybe one step in addition to what you're doing now, and it starts off just in a different place.
Yeah. I'll show you. It actually is very, very similar to putting in a bill, but we'll run it through. Like we said, the most important part is knowing when and what needs to go through here.
So you're going to do this you're going to do this in staging, right?
Oh, can I? I don't have the new staging link.
Oh.
I can delete it. I don't have to go through all the confirmations, do
okay.
I?
I'll send it to you if you want.
Oh yeah, just do it in staging. Yeah.
No problem. If you want to link it to me. Okay, so for instance, this is something that this is an invoice that we got from that Mir sent over. It's to purchase the light bulbs, the BioLED light bulbs. So for instance, we want this to go into our Israel inventory. It will all be collected into an EB box, and then we'll eventually through inventory we'll allocate it to a project. But for us to see it in our inventory, it needs to, I'm going to wait for you, Todd. For us to see it in our inventory, we have to process a purchase order.
I don't have it. They changed it again.
Lovely. Okay. Can you all see my screen? It's loading.
Yeah, we see that it's still loading.
My lovely internet. Danielle and Caroline, do you guys remember how to do this?
There you go.
All right.
You change a couple. Okay.
Okay.
More or less.
Like, do I want to lead a training on it? Not particularly.
And I'll record it even. Okay. So rather than going into accounting to process a bill, you're going to go into the purchase application. All right. It looks very similar. All right. So you see the last ones that were here were like Danielle forever ago. And Adela. So we're going to create a purchase order. It's called an RFQ, request for quotation.
Wait, can you guys see it? I don't see anything yet.
You don't see
Tara,
anything yet?
which company are you in, Tara? Just out of
I'm in
curiosity.
Israel right now because I'm going to process the one from EOS.
Tara, if it's a long process, would it be possible to create a Notion page same as the performance review one?
So Tara, just
yeah, thanks.
You want me to switch?
Tara, I wouldn't do it in Israel just because Israel can be, yeah.
Alrighty. Pick a company, any company. All right, so I'm gonna delete it anyways afterwards, so it's not.
Well, I don't. Hang on one second. I just want to see if I can. I have the.
Okay. So you want to create an RFQ. the same information goes in as before. So we can do Encolodi, the vendor reference is the bill reference, the same like you do in a bill. The order deadline, Bruce, what do you want them to write here? It's not the same as the accounting deadline. I say just be the day that they process it into a bill.
Well, I mean, if they have a deadline, they could put it in, but if not,
So if it's actually ordering equipment and it's expected to like arrive to us and we're making, you know, like a request and we know like a certain date, it's going to come at the end of the month, then you can do that. Otherwise, just leave it on the date that you're processing it. Okay, you can write LED equipment for EBs. Whatever, the same description you would put in a bill. LED lights. Again, if there's a project, a donor, oh goodness. This is thank you to Tal and all of the wonderful variants he made. Let's just choose this, one of these. It's not letting me, there we go. See, it's not letting me select them. So let's do.
Maybe because it's on 0 or.
Yeah, but we're trying to order it to us. So it should be like adding to from the 0. Let's just do something else for now. Well, oh, here it is. It wants me to put the number in. Okay, I see what it's doing. So I want to order 50 of these, whatever the. All right, so there's the quantity, the unit price. Again, if it needs to be allocated, a lot of times the equipment will probably go on Kirsch, but if it's something that I don't have a donor for, no need to do, like if you have a project that you can allocate it to, go ahead. But if you're buying equipment in bulk, don't put a project name because we'll want to allocate it to individual projects later. Okay, so most of the times in this place when we're ordering equipment in bulk, we don't have unless you have the actual project names of everything and you put each product in line by line. But most times we haven't allocated it to the project yet. So that's important to note.
If you do have it already,
you do have it, yeah, you can put it in. It needs to go like a bill, like line by line.
Yeah. And if you have like a few that are TBD that you haven't allocated yet, can you leave like 3 lines blank?
No, if whatever else you don't have, put it on Kirsch. Okay.
Exactly.
And then we'll run the numbers later. But what's really important is that when we get our inventory up and running, and Todd can kind of run through how this works on the inventory side. Once that, then we need to allocate those projects. And once we allocate the individual pieces of equipment to a project, then we'll be able to update the finances on the back end.
So Danielle had a question about the analytic accounts. If you put in the project name or the donor name, so put in the donor name here. Just put in the donor name. Just put in Kirsch.
Mm-hmm.
It will when you create a bill, because the next step to this is creating a bill. It'll populate the analytic account for you. Yeah.
You have.
What if it's a reserve fund?
So then you
so it's the same thing. So it's the same thing. If you type in, well, so once again, yeah, exactly.
Tara, your answer to Gabby wasn't clear to me until then. So let's say we have a bill of 10 tanks.
Mhm.
7 of them we know the projects they're going to, so we allocate properly, donor, etc., etc. 3 are just general to keep in storage. They'll be allocated at a later stage.
Right.
At what stage now do those 3 get allocated to a project?
So you do your 7 individual, put the project name that you know of, then do an 8th one for the amount of what the 3 would total, and put it on Kirsch.
Okay, so because
And-
it's like grouped, you guys will see that it's funny and you'll see
Exactly.
it.
So
needs to
how it
be-
will go into the inventory, it'll say those 3 tanks are still in inventory. And right now we're going to allocate it to Kirsch, and then we can change the allocation once we have a project. So what you would do in that case, you do the project name, it would give you the donor automatically, and then you would have one extra one, would be the collective 3, no project name, but donor Kirsch.
And Tara, here you have the currency as ZAR, but obviously, for the unit
Yeah.
price or whatever it is, whatever you're going to put in to match the
Yeah.
bill.
I mean, yes, exactly. So if for instance the invoice is in USD, process it in USD. If the invoice, like whatever currency the invoice is in, to process it in that, so that we have that breakdown in the finances also.
Tara,
Okay.
I also want to ask, at what stage do we feel that request? Like, is it when we get the deliveries? Is it before? Is it when,
Before.
like, when we want to buy?
When you get that invoice, when you're ready to process a payment, you can already start this process. The same way you would do a bill. Once you have an invoice and you've made your delivery, or you've made a request for equipment, then you can put it in here.
Do
Well, but
you
this
have
is
to
this
do
is this is what.
both?
So for example, I want to make an order of 10 controllers. So I get the invoice from the vendor, and then I put it here, and I do a bill as well to
Right,
pay
so we're
for
almost
the.
there. So the same way you do a bill, you've got all your information here. You save it, you attach your,
It's just put an amount. Just put an amount so you have something.
sorry, yeah.
So this is just to log it into the inventory list, basically. It's not to do the payment to the vendor. Okay.
Well, we'll get to that, yeah. This feeds right into a bill, so we'll show you how that works. Bruce, do you want them to attach the invoice here? Because frankly, it doesn't pull over into the bill, and
No, because they need it in the bill.
Yeah,
That's the
just
most
remember
important.
to make your attachments in the bill. Here, it's not really that significant, unless Tal, do you think it will pull it into the inventory? I highly doubt it. Probably not. It'll just link the PO. All right. So
I have a
saving that.
question before we continue. Is there an approval process for the purchase order as well? Or so we automatically move to the billing process?
Exactly. So what you
Yeah,
want to do.
you're getting your approval from the bill side of it.
Exactly. The approval is only at the bill stage. So what you want to do, once you save it, you got your information in, you want to say confirm order. All right. Then you see here, so first off, technically you have to receive the products. So say we got those. This was always the confusing part. Right, wasn't it here?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, now I'm trying to work off my memory. Okay, so now you want to say where this is going, like which stock. So this is where it's connecting to inventory. So once you confirm the order, and then you can say that the products are received, you have to say which stock office it's going into. So in South Africa, they have 4. There's the general South Africa one, and then they can also put it specifically as delivered to one of their offices.
Well, Tara, let's take a step back. I mean, wouldn't they be first putting in the bill, because aren't they having to pay for it first before they receive it?
Well, let's see if it'll let us. If I remember correctly, we couldn't.
Well, it depends, because right now they're set up to pay upon receipt. So I don't know if that's
Yeah,
everything.
you're right. Okay,
I
so
don't
let's
know-
see if we can just create a bill. Yeah, I thought it wouldn't let us, because you have to,
because we didn't
Like
receive it
quality.
yet, so
Yeah.
I don't know if I don't know if
you can
if
change the
it's,
settings if you want to not have to have it as a receivable.
well, I don't know. I don't know what's the standard, in terms of people having to receive, people
Guys, what's
buying
the
it.
likelihood that you're gonna receive the products before you need it to pay it?
Not ever.
Yeah, I think that we always pay it before.
No,
receive it.
we get them sometimes before we pay it from, if Henk Lodi, for example, is a trusted, he trusts us, we trust him, we have a long-standing relationship, we ask him to provide us with something, he will even before we pay, so.
So it's going to be different depending on what vendor we're with.
Yeah,
So it sounds like with Tal, I don't know if Tal, we need to figure out if we can do it by vendor.
Todd, can you make a note and see if it's possible to do both options? Maximum, I really don't even mind that we say receivables, because we know even if it's not right now, we haven't received it. We know that if we're paying for it, we anticipate in a short period of time to receive the products. So Bruce, it's up to you, but I don't mind even just marking it as received even before it's received.
Okay. Well,
Okay, so this is the part where, let's say we need to mark it as received products before we can process a bill. Now, in order to do this, we need to mark, so we have a demand of 50. Okay, and here we're gonna need to mark how many have been received. Where'd it go? Okay, so you click that little kind of dot line. You're gonna say here, add line, and this is where it moves it to a stock, okay, or to an office. If you have more than one office, you'll have the list, but some countries just have this of stock, and it's just your country inventory. Okay, and then you're gonna
Will
mark.
you tell us if we have other stocks, like,
You'll
so we
see it.
know? Okay.
You'll see it as a list here. So there's Mbale and Karamoja, and then there's in of stock, which is just Uganda. Then you'd had an in of stock Mbale, and then you had an in of stock Karamoja. So I would recommend that you put this wherever that shipment is planning on going. Okay. You can also break it out, by the way. If 10 of them go to Mbale and 40 of them go to Karamoja, or vice versa, whatever, you can just add another line.
And what if something happened and we didn't get the order, or it was
So
canceled?
this is why, Tara, it's preferable if we can have it set up that people only do this after they get the
If we can
goods
set it
delivered.
up,
This is
that'd
kind
be
of a
great.
control process,
Yeah, if we can set it up, that'd be great. I just don't want this to stop the process of being able to put through a bill.
Yeah, that's.
So
do we pay for it regularly?
maybe we just change it to the default that it's.
I think the default should be like that we can process the bill immediately without the receivables.
Yeah, fine.
Yeah,
So that
because
you
I
pay
think
for-
that's the case more often than not.
So it should be that everything is paid for in advance, and that should be the
Do
default.
you remember where that
So-
setting is? I don't remember where that.
Just
So
go
we're
into
gonna
the
pay
pro-
for
go into-
things regularly, and then we're gonna do this in Odoo, or we're gonna pay for things through this as well?
Yeah, you pay for things through this as well. Okay, so I'm going to show you how this.
Can you
brings
show us
us-
in that order? Can you show us first that we pay and then how we?
No, we go
Of
through
them?
the RFQ, the purchase order. This whole process is chronological as we need to do it. So you put in the purchase order, then you need to hopefully we'll remove that receives products, but eventually at some point we need to go in and do the receive products, and that's how you do it. You can either do it line by line, meaning if it goes into different stocks, that 50 amount can be spread out here, or all of it goes to one country. Okay, then you confirm it. All right, and then you need to validate it. Okay, this process either comes in order to process a bill, or once the product is received.
Do
Okay.
you want us to do this, Tara, for plaques as well, or can that just go through the usual process?
Yeah, that's just
So
the
it's-
usual process.
So is it just like tanks, pumps, panels, things like that?
EBs, monitoring units, yeah, those things.
But EBs and units are
You guys aren't
mayor's
dealing
going
with
to
that?
submit.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
why I wanted Meir here. But yeah, it's also, by the way, you can do, for instance, office inventory, like when you buy laptops, when you buy desks, when you know, those kinds of things also. Anything that you want to sit in our inventory. But plaques, we order them and they go straight out to the project. So I'm not really, plus we don't need to like track it in our inventory.
Just one quick thing, when you buy for an office, sometimes it's not inventory, so we need to separate this fixed asset.
Yeah, so Sebastian, I guess right now, we can talk offline, but right now, the way everything's working, it's all running to the P&L, and then we have to figure out what we put back
and
to
then
the
we,
balance
okay,
sheet.
so sorry,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, so
That's
no,
fine.
but from the accounting perspective, literally everything's runs to the P&L right now for us, and we have to then
Perfect.
decide
Okay.
what to charge back the
Now
balance
it's
sheet.
clear to me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Perfect.
good.
There's a lot of back end work that the finance department's gonna do, but this from our end, we need to start putting it in. So now we can create a bill. Okay, so it takes the information that you had in the purchase order. Okay, you see here, it's all the same information, and then it puts it into a bill like you would usually process. The only thing you need to go back in and do is do the bill date, whatever the date on the bill is, obviously the accounting at the end of the month, that same month, do any
The
terms if
description,
you needed,
yeah.
and the
Right.
description. So 50 LED lights, okay, and then attach your invoice.
And you also have to make sure that the project name didn't come through. If you look at the, what do you call it? Look at
Yeah,
the
you're right, it didn't.
but
Wait,
the
did I have
analytic,
it didn't come through with the donor,
it doesn't come through, so they may have to
so you have to do you want them to
here,
break it out though then in the PO, or only break
what
it
do you
out in
mean?
the bill? The
As long as it's
situation that
as long as it's in the bill, that's where I care about. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Because the bill is what's giving
I
the
don't want
finances.
the programs team to have to be doing the line items for both a PO and a bill.
It's fine if they just do it in the bill, but once again, I mean, we can ask Leyline to make sure it carries over because
That
it's
would
not
be
Trump.
nice if we can just
Yeah.
tell them to make sure all the data carries over.
Right.
Yeah, let's do that. Okay, so then we do our attachment.
So at this point in the process, you're in exactly the same position you are with the regular submission of the bill, but you should have the ability to request for your approval. So if you go, yeah, you go, perfect. Don't.
But I'm not
yeah.
going to because I want to delete it. Yeah.
So literally the only thing that you're doing is you're going to this one step in advance, creating the purchase order. You're saving it, you're confirming it. Tara, we'll change it on the back end so that the
Yeah,
products
if they don't have to
have
do
to
the
be they
receivables.
shouldn't have to receive the products because the
I
products need to be
agree.
received by the local accountants or
I agree.
whoever's
We should have
managing
the local
inventory.
team, the local
Right.
accountant do the receivables.
So it should be yeah,
Yeah.
it shouldn't be basically
So
received by
before
the
I delete this, maybe Tal, you wanna share and show how this pulls into the inventory? Make the world go round?
Yeah, I don't know how to show because we don't have a staging ground, but basically I think I showed it to everyone, maybe except for Tamar, like one.
But
Basically,
even those 50 in South Africa now, can you show where they pull up?
did you put it in?
Yeah, it's in.
Okay, so just a second.
If we wanted to see our inventory, we can just go check it on Odoo, like it's accessible to us.
I was on South Africa. Yeah.
Was South Africa. But basically, once you put in a purchase in the purchase app, it's gonna wait for you here in the receipts. So you purchase it, you paid for it, and then you're waiting for it. So as long as you're waiting for it, it's gonna be here in the receipts. And then it's gonna be here, and then I don't know why yours is not here.
I
mean,
actually already received it, so it should be in the
it's not yours.
yeah, it won't be in the receipts, it'll be in the stock.
Oh, you received it already.
Yeah, I received it already. I couldn't process it without it.
Okay, so when you purchase it, it's going to be here, the bill, and then it's going to be ready, like it is here. It's going to say ready. Let's say for this one, for example, and then when you validate it, it means it got to the office. So once you validate it, it will go inside your inventory automatically.
But remember, you have to edit it and put what's come in and give it to a stock, right?
What do you mean?
Like if you try to validate now, it probably won't let you.
It will. I won't validate this, but it will.
Even
Is
if you
this
don't mark the number received?
Yeah.
Okay.
So basically, when you validate it, it goes into your stock automatically. This is all your stock, Abby. So South Africa, I mean, but like this is the stock. And it automatically goes in here with the value. Like the quantity on hand will change, will be updated. If it's another line, we'll just add another line. And the value will update according to the value that you purchase it by. What did you order it to, Tara?
I
Which
read
one?
it to just the overall stock, not the not a specific yeah, it's that 50 right there of stock.
What is it?
You see it right here, the about one more, yeah, that one.
So she validated it. So it's in the inventory.
She
That's how many we
validated
have on
it
hand.
before she submitted it, right? That was what, you don't need to go back in if you do it before.
Like the
Right.
actual process is that you send in a request, and then we wait for it to come to the office, and only then you validate it.
Are
So
we going to validate it or the local accountant?
The local accountant, like he's the one in the office. I guess he's the one also purchasing it, and then it will be part of his job that he'll have here like all the receipts he's waiting for. Something gets to the office, it goes to receipts and just validates it.
Thanks.
yeah, so where it's a bit mixed up right now is that the purchase orders are set up not to be able to let you process the bill without receiving the products, but we'll change that in the settings. So really all you have to do is put in the purchase order, create the bill, and then the local team, once the products arrive, then they need to go in and receive it and validate it, and it puts it in the stock. And then they can also, for instance, when we take products to another office or another region or whatever, then it can be transferred from like the main stock to, for instance, another region. And then comes all the process that Tada's already kind of run through with each of you, whereby then each individual product is allocated to a project. All of you all have had that training with Tada so far about how the inventory and the project allocations work? Give me a nod.
We didn't, but we have it soon.
Okay. So is that pretty clear? It should be pretty simple.
What I would say is that the first time or two that you're trying to do this, it probably makes sense that we do it kind of as a walkthrough, so that you obviously make sure you get it right and you're comfortable with it, and then from there you'll probably be off and running. So it's like anything else, you do it once or twice, and the fact of the matter is it's you've already done the build part of it, so once you set up the purchase order, which is very similar to the bill, and hit confirm, and they'll take away they'll allow you to create the bill without receiving the products, which will allow you to go to the next step. It should be pretty simple. Because all the other stuff in terms of the receiving the products and confirming the receipt is all stuff that you really wouldn't need to do. That's all stuff that Tara, we need to train, and Tal, we need to train everybody, the local team on.
Yeah, I think once the payments are all there, as long as it's going to a local country, I think they can do the receipts. We'll have to train Meir on how to do the receipts and stuff like that for Israel. But if there's something, for instance, like water quality that Emily is buying and sending to herself in Israel, Bruce, she needs to do that through the Israel purchase order, right?
Yeah, we have to start now that we've got Israel pretty much up and running for the most part. We need to start working with it in terms
And
of the
in that
inventory.
case, I would say either our finance department or Emily herself. I'm not really sure who at that point you want to do the transfer from Israel to, let's say, whatever country she takes those pieces of equipment. Like, we'll have to make that transfer from companies.
Actually, it leads me to another question, because these sample kits, for example, they're consumables. They're not like static in the office, and they're not static in the project. They're used and then they're thrown away.
Right. So we shouldn't be inventorying them if they're consumables.
You sure? Even not just for the office sake?
No, it's like t-shirts. You're not gonna, you know what I'm saying? Like, you're not gonna keep track of your, I don't think you're gonna be keeping track of
we could keep track of the number of t-shirts we have. I know I particularly would like our team to track the number of t-shirts.
No, I think it's really, like small little kits and things that are consumable that you're going to use and be done with. I think we have to make sure that they're set up as consumables in the product list, and that you're not inventorying them and keeping track of them, because it's a lot more, work for not a lot of benefit.
So they are like when I set up products, they can be set up as storables or consumables, and once they're consumables, it can't even enter the inventory. Like,
really?
Yeah.
So just as long as as long as they're set up in the right category, then we're set. So if it's a consumable, do they have to go on and do it this way? Or they would do it this way, but then they would it wouldn't matter. So like if they don't need to know whether it's a consumable or not set up in the system, they would just go through the purchase order, and in theory, you've already set up as a consumable, it just wouldn't hit the inventory.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Is it clear to everybody what kind of, products we process in this way? Great.
Maybe you can just give a quick overview.
Okay.
So you probably can very simply, we can go onto the products and go onto if you go into the products and category, and here, let me share my screen.
Okay, go ahead.
Sure, but hold on a second. We can take a look at what's set up for. Everybody can see my screen? So if you go into products, and then you just go onto your list view, and then if you group by a product type, you'll see, and then if we can group by, let's say, group by product category. So within consumable, we have alarm system, equipment, tool, general. We've got some things here in storable. Let's see, storable products. So project equipment. Here's all things: battery, carton box, circuit breaker clamp, energy box, pressure gauge, all these things.
So as you see here, a lot of these things are like related to what Meir purchases for the water monitoring units and for the energy boxes. But we have products even for the office, and you know, tanks are in here somewhere, I think.
Yeah, so if you go to group by product category, office equipment, if I group by product type, all the office equipment is storable. Let's see.
So for example, if Mayor is sending us the EBs, booster antennas, like if he's sending us all these things, I need to put it also through the purchase order as well.
Yeah, he'll do it. We'll train him to do it
So
when
he'll do it. So he'll do it so it goes into our local inventory as well.
Well, he will purchase it to Israel. Like he purchases all the pieces, then he assembles it, and then he ships you know, he ships the full units. And there is like a whole process that of how we take that entire unit. It works with
the only time you should be involved in this or deal with this is anytime you're purchasing directly from an outside third-party vendor.
Yeah.
So if it's coming from IA somehow and it's not coming from an actual vendor, you wouldn't be dealing with it. So if it's internal, that'll be handled outside of you guys.
So what type of things do
Or-
you purchase? Like,
So like
doesn't-
like for example, I think we bought pumps from API directly into the country. So you know, whether it was in Cameroon or Malawi, you guys bought pumps directly from a vendor. Okay, that would be a perfect example. It's not like
Like
it's not like
you're gonna buy
Thanks.
tomorrow also.
what's that?
I was gonna say Tamara's trying to buy a lot of tanks, so those tanks. will
Right. So
be
you're
one of
buying
the
it
things
directly
we
from a
put there.
vendor to Malawi, you know, or to Uganda. You're buying this equipment directly. That's when you would use this system and process.
If the equipment doesn't sit in your office, for example, Omri, I know that you keep them in the contractor's warehouse. Do we still do it through this if it's not physically in an inventory that's in our space?
That's a really good question.
We bought it from the contractor, or we bought it from a third party, and when we sent it to the
No, so
contractor.
we
Bought it from a
the
supplier.
contractor.
What's
And
that?
the supplier is keeping it in his like premises, but of course it's part of our inventory.
Yeah, so there should be a location there for the supplier.
But I don't know, Bruce, that's gonna get really hairy.
But we do need to keep track of that. Like if I buy now, for
Right,
example,
like all of a sudden, you know, if we don't have
Pipes.
track, that we
Yeah.
need to know that, you know, if something happens, that okay, we have 10 pumps at this guy's warehouse.
we
So Omri, I want to
know
set up.
where it's located or have
Yeah,
like a
Omri, for if anybody's doing that, please speak with Tao so we can set up a stock that's
have them.
specifically with that supplier rather
Okay.
than like IA office, you know?
But Tara, I think it might be more than one supplier, because I think many of us, as part of the cost-cutting measures, are looking into bulk purchases of materials for projects, and we don't have where to store them. So a lot of the times we're asking contractors or suppliers to potentially store bulk material for us. So
Give
it's
me a
not just,
ballpark
well,
number, how many suppliers?
for us, it's something that we're just now starting to look into, so we don't have that yet. But the idea is to potentially do that throughout the year.
Yeah, no, that's fine. We'll just want to make what's called like a warehouse, not with the name of our office, but with the name of whatever the supplier is. So we know it's sitting at that supplier. You know how
Yeah,
it says
we
like
paid-
end of
we paid
stock?
for it.
It'll be like
Right.
end of stock, I don't know, whatever supplier name.
Right.
Gabs, what was your question?
And Tara, there may be even a way
Uh,
to set that up automatically within Odoo, because I can't imagine that's like that's probably a common thing.
To set up how to set up a thing? Yeah, it's not that hard. You just have to
I'm
make
saying
sure
I'm saying you may not need to, you know, if you're storing at the supplier, maybe something that's already standard that we don't have to, you know, it's something just anyway, we'll figure it out.
Okay. Tal, that's okay, right? We can just do like an end of stock with the supplier name, yeah?
Yeah, it's not a problem.
Gabby, did you have a question, or because if not, I have one.
No, it was just a comment because I know Omri does that, and in Malawi we do it too. So that was all.
Cool. So I wanted to ask also if you said if it's internal, then we're not using the purchase process. But if you're shipping something to us and we're only paying for the incoming shipment, do we then put that invoice as a regular bill and not through the purchase app? And then you through Israel put the actual items into the purchase app, like the monitoring units?
So the idea is that there's something that's called landing costs, like shipping and customs, that can also go through a purchase order and be allocated as part of and can be like distributed across the projects as well. So those costs can also be in a purchase order so that we can be tracking it as a landing cost. So I don't know if you guys noticed in Bruce, we do it through purchase order, or we can just mark it in the bill as a landing cost.
in the bill, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure I followed Danielle your question. Maybe we can just, and I'm not sure if it was answering Danielle's question. Danielle, can you just repeat what
Is that not
exactly?
the type of service you meant?
So I meant like, okay, Mayo's putting together monitoring units and he's shipping them to South Africa. We're not paying for the actual monitoring units, but we are paying for a contractor to go and take them out of customs. And like the customs.
The shipping, the customs cost. Yeah.
Yeah.
You would just.
Even the installation cost.
As a regular bill, or do I put it in through the purchase app, like, so that it's calculated as part of that item? Like, I'm not sure how to do that.
Bruce,
You just put it as a
technically,
regular bill.
are you
would
sure?
just-
Because if we wanted, we could put those works on individual, like as a landing cost, and it could be allocated evenly between that product.
Yeah, I'm not sure that we've kind of figured that out yet in terms of, because I think we were talking about the internal process, and Tal had come up with that application that I don't know what happened. We have to talk about the internal process, because that's a whole
Okay.
different ball of wax.
For now, we'll process shipping and customs, like those larger ones, through a purchase order. But like installation costs from a contractor, for now, you can just process a bill. Yeah. Although, we can talk about that. Bruce, we also need to talk about how we would process like maintenance costs. Technically, it could kind of go through the same process whereby it could be allocated to projects.
But when you say, aren't we just, we're not really typically, when you say maintenance costs, aren't we just,
Yeah, it's reserve, but if it's going to become a larger thing, we could piece it out.
no, but are people buying equipment that gets stored that then has to be allocated out for maintenance, or are they just kind of buying, the maintenance costs are coming up and we pay for it, and you know what I mean? Like, it's only where we're storing stuff and then it has to go out to the
Yeah.
projects.
You're right. Okay, so just a bill.
Yeah.
All right.
No, but what you're saying is exactly what happens, right? Let's say we purchase a bunch of extra float valves and we have them in our inventory, and then one breaks in a specific project, we go and replace it.
Right. So then you'd use
out
the
of the
purchase.
project.
Right. Right. So anytime something is like gonna, go into inventory for a period of time, right? Or if it's gonna, let's put it this way.
So such a complicated.
If it's gonna get allocated to the project, it should run through the inventory, right? If it's because it's not gonna.
But it's even non-project based equipment as well. It's just if you want it in the inventory, put it through a purchase order. And some of that will allocate to a project and some of it we won't.
Ugh, painful.
Like we're not going to allocate every, I don't know, every hammer and nail to a project. But the big things we will.
Look, what happens if you just put it through a bill and you put the projects on it, it will be in the project costs. What it won't show is it won't show that you have one pump in this project in their particular in the inventory app. So, Tara, the question is, what's more relevant? Do we want to, you want to make sure you get it in both? If you want to make sure you get it in both, then you got to run through the purchase app.
Yeah.
If you're only concerned about getting into the finance, it's got to be through
the bill.
The bills.
Yeah. Yeah.
you know. Because at some point you guys are tracking, and I don't know if this is the only place where you're tracking, oh, we have, you know, this energy box here, we have this water pump here, we have, you know, is that all being tracked? Isn't some of that being tracked currently in the database, or is that being tracked? Where is that being?
Yeah,
Or is that these Excel sheets?
we have record of like what hardware is installed, like generally. But it's not it's not to the same level of like the inventory where we have all the variants and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a question of, you know, how much you want to track that. How much we need to track that. Whether it's for mayor or anybody else.
Yeah. So definitely anything that needs to go in the inventory, we put through a purchase order. Works or things like that, it just goes through a bill. And where possible, we allocate it on a project, both on the purchase order side, inventory, and bill side. Yeah. But again, if it's, for instance, like now we're purchasing all of Mayor's equipment for EBs and water monitoring, etc., we put it on Kirsch. And then once we actually make the shipments and then it gets to the ground and then it's installed, then we go to inventory and we start allocating it to projects. And that is then when the finance team can come in and reallocate the funds. Does that make sense? So the whole idea of this is for us to know what our inventory is, not on an Excel sheet, how it integrates with our finance system and our donor system, and ultimately that we can track. For years now, we haven't had a way to track, you know, these pieces of equipment and connecting it to the finances and tracking where its location is. So all of that together now is integrated in Odoo. So that's kind of our purpose.
Well, theory, somebody, yeah.
Sorry. Oh, so once, let's say we purchase a bunch of tanks, right? Like they're doing now in, I think we said it was Cameroon and Malawi. And then we're purchasing them in the beginning on reserve or unrestricted, and then afterwards we're allocating them to projects. Are they then going to be transferred into project costs, like from the donor account? And can we tell you when they should be taken out of the donor account and when they should not? Because certain things will and certain things won't, according to what Sivan has instructed each of us.
Can you give us an example? Danielle, can you give us an example on something that if you put it on a project that you didn't want it to be a donor allocation?
So for instance, right now we're re-drilling a project and Sivan doesn't want to put the expense of the new pump that we need or the new panels that we need on the donor. She wants it out of reserve, but it is something, let's say, that we're purchasing and we're going to have to put on the project. So how do we handle a situation like that?
So you'll do a purchase order, make a bill. On both the purchase order and the bill, you'll put it on reserve. And then in inventory, once it's installed, you'll put it on to the project. But Bruce, we're just going to have to be very aware of donor allocations between the purchase order and an inventory and all of that whenever the finance piece gets put in.
Yeah.
So from your end, Danielle, it should be pretty easy. It might be, we have to figure out the system on the finance side.
Yeah, no, I just want to understand if at the point at which like we're validating the inventory and then allocating it to a project, does it automatically get also allocated to the donor account, or is there somewhere where I'm supposed to mark whether it should or shouldn't?
At this point, it's not automated.
So am I marking it? Do I put in?
So what's going to need to happen is that anytime, so if stuff goes into inventory, right, it's going to be like sitting in the office inventory. At the point in which you want to allocate it to projects, that will need to be, and we can provide you with like a spreadsheet, which will say, okay, move this, these products and these things from inventory to these projects and charge it to the donor or don't charge it to the donor. We can give you some sort of template spreadsheet to do that, because right now, like, if you just go and do that and like move it in the inventory, it's not going to move the finances, and I won't have any way of knowing, oh, you wanted this not to go to the project, you know what I mean? So we can give some sort of spreadsheet that will facilitate that process. Because if you do it like just moving the units, but it's not going to, just moving the units won't move the finances necessarily.
Yeah. So maybe Bruce, let's just keep this in mind when we start figuring out the system of how to do the finance allocations.
We need to go through live examples. I think there's a lot of nuances. There's a lot of different things that are happening. And I think Tara, as we kind of learn, as we start working through the process, we need to kind of work closely hand in hand to build out how some of these things are going to work a little bit more smoothly, because there's a lot of pieces and a lot of different variants that happen.
Yeah. Yeah, let's sit down with Leilani on it and see how.
Well, let's first go through specific examples as they come up. And once again, it's a lot of it is, okay, here's the template spreadsheet that we need to move stuff on the finance side, and here's what you need to do. So I think we just need to work through real live examples.
Yeah. So while we're here on this topic, real quick, of which countries have you guys got training from, Tal, you and your local teams and accountants and managers, on how to go from the inventory and start allocating it to projects, and are your teams like up and functioning in that at this point? I know Zambia still is needing training. Are your teams actively doing this now? I know that Malawi is.
Yeah, Malawi is. Tara, I'm really sorry to interrupt. I have a meeting at 4, and so does Karen, that Ben is teaching us some things. So we're gonna have to go. But if there's anything that you need from us for Malawi, let us know and we'll make sure we get to it.
Gotcha. Cool. Good luck.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
So we started to do this process in Cameroon, but right now our teams are on vacation. So tomorrow they are going to come back, and during this week we are going to arrange another call together with Tal, and then we'll just make sure that they are starting to allocate everything and just working with the inventory.
Yep. Cool.
In Uganda, Tal, we had a meeting with him and he showed us everything, but Ivan didn't send the inventory list yet. So we will start working on this, I hope this week.
To try and get the inventory added into it before.
Yeah, but they already understand the process and how it's going to work and what they need to do.
Great. Tal, do we have a Notion or some sort of like guide on it?
No, I'll make one.
Okay, thanks.
In Tanzania, we took the time now during our visit to do like a proper process with the team, whereby they request a specific item which is already in the office. So we track where all the items are after we lost some equipment last month. And our inventory is almost complete, and Tal will assist us in loading it to Odoo after. And Viva is already aware of how to deal with everything.
Great. Is South Africa good to go?
So South Africa, Tal was with us there in October, and we went through a training with the teams, basic training on the purchase app. I think we're going to need to do maybe a second and third refresher for them, because they have a tendency not to really process it the first time around. But generally they should understand the theory by now.
I think a Notion would really help, though. I think like having a Notion page, they really appreciate when they have.
Yeah, we'll work on that.
Like the team has mentioned multiple times that like they appreciate having those kind of detailed instructions listed out, and so they can go back also and refer to it, so they don't have to constantly be asking questions. Sometimes they don't even know what questions to ask, or what they're missing. So that's like also really helpful.
Also, we just onboarded a new accountant who was not around for Tal's initial training, so she's going to need to be trained on this.
Yeah, the more Odoo training we can have for her, the better.
Yeah.
Neo.
I had a somewhat unrelated thought just to put on the table, maybe for Tara and Bruce, you guys to think about. We were talking about countries starting to do bulk purchases on reserve fund until they're allocated to a project and then allocated to a donor fund. But if we all start doing this in mass, is there even enough cash flow in the reserve fund for it to sustain this even temporarily? Like, I
No,
don't.
it should, well, I don't, it just should be doing it on Kirsch. I mean,
Yeah.
this is a
We don't do it on
Kirsch
reserve
project.
funds. Yeah.
No, he shouldn't be doing it on reserve fund. He shouldn't be buying bulk in reserve funds.
Okay, so Kirsch
Yes.
without a project allocation. All right.
Yeah. And then it'll get reallocated as to the projects as and when. Yep. Yeah, don't purchase anything on bulk from Kirsch or on reserve or unrestricted.
Yeah. All right. So we'll work on a Notion. Bruce or Tal, do you know how to do the settings for the receivables? And we can make that adjustment. And then moving forward, feel free to start using the purchase app whenever you process equipment. That would be great.
Tal, is that something you can change, or you want me to look at it?
What that we pay on receiving and not when purchasing?
Yeah.
That's in the settings, Bruce. You showed me how to do it.
I don't remember how to do it. I just remember the drop down.
So we want to change it to pay
on. No, not pay on receivables. We want
not
to
pay on ordering.
pay on order.
Most-
Yeah.
Most of them are paid on ordering now. Like I always change them. I don't know about the old products, but
Is it per
Okay.
product or is it per company?
Per product.
Okay, that sucks. Yeah, I
Can you
remember
just-
Tal, when you first started to put it in, you were putting it on pay on order.
okay, I can make sure that
Yeah.
all of them are paid on
Yeah,
ordering.
because I guess we just went through one that wasn't.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bruce, can you stay on with me?